We're getting in on the fun, and in this video we're going to rank After Effects effect categories to see what are the best set of effects for the average user. So if you're just starting out and you're curious to know what the best set of useful effects may be for you, that's exactly what we're going to break down in this video. Keep in mind this is based off of my experience, and I welcome conversation in the comments below, so let me know what you think are the best set of effects in After Effects.
Alrighty, here's our chart. Now there's a couple of effects I'll be missing from this list. So just quickly, we're obviously gonna be leaving out Cinema 4D and Boris effects because simply these are like links to other software. Also, I'm leaving out 3D channel, immersive video because I've never used any of these effects before and I don't want to list those. And also we're gonna leave out obsolete because this is gonna be changing throughout time, so it doesn't really matter. So the very first effect category we have is audio. Now I'm gonna put this right into a D tier because After Effects is not so much an audio software. You really shouldn't be doing much audio editing. I believe they just put these effects in here just because they could, but for the most part, you're not gonna really be audio editing inside of After Effects. Perhaps you'll drop in a music track and adjust the volume of that, but that's pretty much as far as the audio editing is typically going to go for the average user. So next up on our list is Blur and Sharpen. We'll put this into B tier. So the reason why Blur and Sharpen go into B tier is that even though there's a lot of great uses for these blur effects, is that it's primarily going to be used for compositing. So yeah, you can use these within your motion blur to pop things in and out of focus, and that's a great use for them. But typically you're gonna pull a blur effect when you're compositing. So if compositing in VFX isn't the reason why you're using After Effects, you're using it just for motion graphics, you know, you're gonna use a blur effects, but it's not gonna be on every single project. All right, so now we gotta decide where channel goes. So channel is a really cool set of effects. However, these are usually used for two reasons. These are used for really compositing, and secondly, for changing the color of your scene via RGB. So I usually use these as a set of effects for glitches, but also I use them from time to time to help composite our effects together. So for the beginner and the intermediate user, this is going to be a set of rare effects that you will typically use. There are a few quick effects in here like invert and shift channels that can help change your composition really quick. But for the most part, you're usually gonna have to have a specific reason to use this effect. So I'm gonna put channel into the C tier. All right, so it's time for color correction. I absolutely love color grading. However, After Effects is not a color grading software, so you shouldn't be color correcting your footage from scratch. However, there are a lot of useful effects that I use within our videos here on YouTube, like curves, change to color, tint, levels, and my favorite, brightness and contrast, where I usually use this to create a flicker animation. So even though there's a ton of effects in here that may not ever really be used, but there's a handful in here that can go a long way across, a lot of your projects. So color correction is gonna have to go in the A tier for sure. All right, so now we have the Distort category, and there's a handful of awesome effects in here. But overall, how I think of the Distort category is if I'm looking to manipulate, an entire element or the entire composition, I can apply one of these effects and it's going to manipulate the entire body of work. So if you're looking to enhance your composition really quick, or if you have a very specific distortion that you're looking to apply, the Distort category is going to have everything you need. So Distort is going to go in the S tier because once you see the value of some of these effects, you could just apply one of these effects to the overall composition and it can dramatically change the value of your work. Expression controls. Okay, so I'm a little biased on this because I am a template creator, but expression controls is primarily for people that are looking to create a template for other users to use, or for those of you that just want to be extremely organized. So essentially, expression controls allow you to just tie everything via expressions to an effect. So you can easily change colors, turn on and off other objects with a checkbox, change other parameters very easily with a slider. So that's primarily what the expression controls category is for. So I'm going to put it in C tier, as expression controls is something that you'll probably come across if you use templates or if you're just a very organized individual. Generate is one of the few effect categories here where if you apply any of the effects on this list, the generate list of effects is primarily used for creating something from nothing. So if I apply any of these effects to a solid, we're going to see something. So we apply the grid effect, we're going to get a grid. If we're going to apply a gradient ramp, we're going to get a gradient. So for most of the effects in this category, there's very specific uses. Probably only going to use the audio spectrum or waveform effects when you want to create an audio waveform. However, there's some general uses like gradient ramp. You can use that for backgrounds. The CC light sweep effect is great for like logos and title work. And the grid effect could be great for backgrounds or adding a little extra style to your work. So generate is going to go into the S tier for its multiple uses.
Before we move on, as you know, creating motion graphics from scratch is obviously very time consuming and it can be incredibly challenging. That's why we made over 5,000 templates to help you save time and produce awesome work under one subscription. For example, you can preview thousands of templates from any of our packs and click apply. Then you can change the template parameters and then you are done. So if you're looking to get an edge in your business or your career, check out every template we have with our links below. So for the next two categories, I'm going to put these two together. I'm calling this keying and matte because so typically when you use these effects, it's for keying out a blue or a green screen or something of the sorts. And usually you're going to use these two effect categories together in some form. So if you're doing any keying work, this set of effects are going to be perfect for what you're doing. So automatically I'm going to put this into A tier. Now, if you're not doing any keying work, you're rarely going to use these effects, but you know, for the most part, if you're looking to key out a green screen or a blue screen, you have everything you need right here instead of After Effects. Noise and grain may be an effect category that you just hop over and not use really anything from here. However, there are some awesome uses for this. So in my tutorials, I always use a noise effect with my motion graphics. You should also consider using noise when you're compositing, you know, clean elements onto footage to kind of match the noise of your shot. Now, the noise and grain category is home to one of the most popular effects, which is fractal noise. However, you know, fractal noise is not really a user-friendly effect. You're gonna have to take some time to understand how it works. So to list noise and grain, we'll put it in A tier because the fractal noise effect really carries this entire effect category. And if you're into texturizing your graphics and compositing, noise and grain is gonna be an awesome effect category for you to look at. So now let's rank perspective. This is a very hard one to rank because each of these effects are actually very good, but once again, you're not going to be able to use all these for every single project. So if you're looking to create depth within your work, maybe you want to create, you know, a fake 3D object, or you want to add a simple drop shadow, perspective is going to have one of the effects that you need for doing that type of work. So we'll put it in A list because you're just not going to use it for every single project, but you have some awesome uses for it. And just like the generate effect category, simulation is great for just adding effect to any type of layer and you're gonna get some sort of result. However, the way that you think about simulation is more in the form of particles. There are other uses other than particles for these effects, but generally speaking, you're gonna add a CC particle world if you wanna create a particle system. You have rainfall and snowfall, which are generally particle systems themselves. You have ball action and starburst, which can help you create a particle grid and you can manipulate it from there. But overall, if you're looking for particle effects, simulation is the place to go. So we'll go ahead and put simulation in S here because it's likely that you'll be working with particle effects at some point in your After Effects career. All right, so Stylize is a tough one to rank correctly because it really just depends on what you're looking to do. So this is home to some very great effects like glow. You're probably going to use glow a lot. Motion tiles is one of my favorite effects for quickly duplicating your scene and being able to, you know, scroll through that. And there's also other great compositing effects within the Stylize category. But Stylize can be great for compositing motion graphics together or just adding a touch of, you know, specific detail to your overall work. It could definitely be A tier, but also it can be S tier just depending on the user. For me, I use this a lot, so I'm going to put it in S tier. All right, so text is home to two effects, numbers and timecode. I have never used any of these effects, even though it is kind of cool to use the timecode effect, but what use do you have that for? It's gonna have to be very specific. So we're gonna put text in D tier because you're probably never gonna use it, and if you do, it's just gonna be extremely rare. All right, so now we're on for time, and I absolutely love this effect category. I love seeing what each of these effects can do, and I probably use half of these in a legitimate scenario. You're rarely going to use many of these effects, and it's really just going to be for creating a very specific thing. So echo is great for duplication. There's other uses for it, which are awesome. Posterized time allows you to quickly create a stop motion effect, but of course you can just use an expression for that. And a handful of these other ones, you know, manipulate the graphic over time, and it can look really great, but you know, usually you're not going to use many of these effects for the majority of your projects. So I want to put time in the B tier list of effects. All right, our second last category is transition. You know, you would think there'd be a lot of cool uses for transition, and you can come up with creative ways to use it, usually for, you know, combining two scenes together, or you can use them in a creative compositing way. But overall, I rarely pull from the transition effects from here. You know, there are some really cool ones, like card wipe is kind of cool. Linear wipe is something you'll probably use a lot. I do like the Venetian blinds effect, and CC scale wipe is actually a really cool effect that you see trending right now. But overall, you're gonna have to be creative with the transition effects category if you wanna create really cool work. So overall, the effect category, I would say it's just average. We'll just put it into the B category. And the last category we have, and the quickest category we'll talk about, is the utility category. This is generally for helping with your color correction, so you can apply a LUT or affect the color of your scene through more mathematical, scientific ways. So typically you're gonna have to really know what you're doing with color grading and color correction to truly understand what these effects do. So for the average user, I'm just gonna put this in the D tier because you're probably never gonna use the utility line of effects. So here's our current list. Let me know down in the comments below how you would arrange this. If you agree or disagree with some of these, maybe you believe color correction should be like a C tier, or you think something should be higher on this list. Let us know in the comments down below. And as always, to close out our video, you can download our free After Effects and Premiere Pro template packs. Those links are below. And always be creating.